The all-time greats. I don't even know that anymore. Welcome into Behind the Turnbuckle. Look at you now. Look at me now. What changed? I was letting the fact that Vince screwed me over get in the way of what my future could be. I've been underestimating myself when it comes to my role in the WWE. And when I started Behind the Turnbuckle, they accused me of trying to get back in WWE. Do you want to go back? I do not want to go back.
You take a pretty mean stunner.
I think I'm top 3. Ooh, Rock was probably the best. Mick Foley is number 2.
Do you know how many ties matches you had?
I'm going to say 6. 30. 30? Wow.
You do not age. You don't. What's the secret?
Olive oil or aloe vera.
Is it a stress-free life since leaving WWE?
Oh my God, no, I'm divorced with 2 kids. You can...
It's not a stress-free life.
No, God, no. Oh God, no. Especially not now. Holy shit. But we're getting there. I'm good. I hate looking at myself on that. Like there, I feel like I get a little bit.
No, you look great on the monitor. You look great in real life. It was about a year ago that you were on the show last.
Yep.
And you were like, nah, man, I'm not interested in wrestling. I'm out. And look at you now.
Look at me now.
You got a wrestling podcast, Behind the Turnbuckle. You are in it. If you go to your Instagram, you're always talking about wrestling. What changed?
Well, a lot of that interview did, because when you and I last talked, it was a situation where Vince McMahon, who we openly talk about on our show, because I think a lot of people, what happened with Vince and continues to happen with Vince, is like, oh, we can't talk about it. But we address it as, I'm almost 15 years inside the WWE. My partner, Tommy Carlucci, 32 years inside the WWE. But when I started my sports betting show, Driving the Line, and we left CBS, and as you know, when you started to grind, the first year is just, you never feel like you're getting anywhere. And I had somebody come to me and say, man, I watched that interview with Van Vliet. You got so many good stories and so much history with the WWE. Why don't you embrace it?
Yeah.
And I was letting the fact that Vince screwed me over with money get in the way of what my future could be. And the media landscape has changed so much now from, where I live. I don't have the ability to work for a network right now. I would have to move. I got kids in high school. So you've got to look at what your life is and what you can do to earn a living and also set up your future. And so when I thought about it, I said, well, what can we do? And then my buddy Tommy Carlucci, and to tell you how far back me and him go, we call him Big Tommy C, right? And he was the first adult to meet my daughter outside of the hospital. And she's now 16 years old.
Wow. So what did Tommy do in WWE?
So Tommy was the head of the international TV department, and he worked hand in hand with Shane McMahon for years and years. His wife still works there. She's been there 38 years at the company.
Wow.
And so, like a lot of people, he was let go a few years ago. And when you're in your early 60s, and I'm kind of like you, I look at everybody now and say, man, how can I help? How can I pick people up? How can I be a positive influence? And we've been such good friends for a long time. I thought, he's got so many good stories. And when he's not on camera, he's incredibly entertaining. So I thought, what if we did a show? And originally I never thought it was going to go anywhere. I was just like, let's just have some fun. I had my producer from Driving the Line. Let's just make some shows.
Yeah.
And he thought when I called him, it was for him to be a producer, not to be on the air. And I said, let's just try it. And so we tried it, eased him in. And he was a little bit stiff at first, but now, are you kidding me? Conrad calls him all the time for his shows. His storytelling is incredible. We have 4 or 5 different shows that we do every single week. We do a live Monday night show called The Last Word, which is kind of chopping up Monday nights. We do live Q&As. We do live watch-alongs with the PLEs. We have a show called The War Room, where we chop up the 5 biggest topics and we argue, kind of like PTI does. So we've developed all of those shows and realized that doing remote content, even though it's different, and we also have an interview show that obviously you're going to be a part of too. We've done a DDP, and we were interviewing DDP, and who walks into the interview? Cody Rhodes.
Right.
And we get 30 minutes with Cody Rhodes that we didn't even plan on. So, and the first thing Cody brought up when we were doing the interview was, he goes, Coach, I don't know if you remember, but back when, and it kind of hit me. I've been underestimating myself when it comes to my role in pro wrestling, my role in the WWE. And when you spend 10 plus years, because sometimes these idiots online at home that have nothing better to do than to insult you. Oh, you're an idiot. You got fired from, never got fired from WWE in 2008. I left to go to ESPN. And I'm going, I was the first one to ever do that. How am I listening to this person tell me that after over 10 years that leaving someplace is a failure? And so when I stopped listening to everybody and just said, what would I enjoy doing? This is what we settled on. And it's been a really fun ride. We just secured our first big partnership. You and I are together on that. That was exciting.
We should say it's my bookie. Which is crazy that you can bet on WWE PLAs on my bookie. You can also bet on who John Cena's final opponent's going to be.
It is so funny you mentioned that. So part of my crew at Driving the Line.
You were on the list. You were on the list.
Do you know how that happened?
How did that happen?
All right, so here's how it happened. So one of my guys, we call him the numbers guy. His name's Rafael Espars. Right? His entire business is making odds for sports books around the world. He's been doing it for 30 years. He's worked for every big name, Caesars, BetMGM, MyBookie, all of them, right? So if you see the odds for the presidential race or for the Oscars or for anything, my guy makes those. So he texted me one day and he said, hey, Coach, John Cena just announced his retirement. He says, you want me to try to get you a meeting with my bookie? And I'd always been like, wrestling betting is the dumbest thing ever. Then you come to find out that it is unbelievably popular.
Yes.
Right? And it's a good way, what I call a launch point. Meaning you get somebody to open an account and they're betting, and then you get them, it's community, it's engagement. Hey, let's bet on Sheamus to beat whoever at minus 200. Yeah. And then when they're in there, then they may bet on an MMA or whatever. So he goes, I'll set up a meeting for you. So I said, let's do it. So then he texts me and he says, hey, I'm going to be making the odds for Cena's last WrestleMania match. And my bookie doesn't care. I mean, we had probably 20 names. I go, hey, put me in there. And he starts laughing on the phone. He's like, are you serious? I said, yeah. And give me better odds than, say, The Undertaker or somebody legit. And he did. And guess what? As of this moment, there have been 12 tickets written on me.
No.
Swear to God. I feel bad for those 12 people. But
wait, you're saying it's not going to happen?
Well, I mean, they haven't called me yet. And much like a lot of big stars, it has to be the right number. I mean, we saw Stone Cold couldn't work out his deal last year.
Yeah.
So I'm a much bigger star than Stone
Clearly,
Cold.
yes.
So, but yeah, I'm still on the list.
You're a minus 3,500.
Minus 3,500.
And Undertaker's
no, plus 3,500. Plus 3,500.
And you're an Undertaker plus 10,000.
Correct. Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. And that to me is kind of why I'm enjoying this so much.
If you were a betting man, and I know you are, who are you putting your money on to be John Cena's WrestleMania opponent?
Well, I think it's going to be Randy Orton.
Yeah.
I really do, because when you look at the fact that they're both basically at the same number of world championships, Randy has come from the kid I knew at 19 years old to where he is now. I'm so incredibly proud of what he's done and the maturity that he's had. But Cena, I traveled with him for many months, and I know that if you watch, whether it was the 2 hours he sat down with you, whether the interview that he just did with Club Shay Shay, where I thought he was ridiculous for talking about Roman Reigns being the GOAT, but that's what he believes, and when he believes in something, that's what he's going to do. And I believe that he's got everything mapped out to the opponent for WrestleMania. And when he announced it, because we were doing a live watch along, I thought to myself, so it's all going to end at WrestleMania. He can't have another title run. And then what does he do at the press conference? You asked the first question, if I remember correctly.
He clarifies it like, that's my last WrestleMania, but I'm going all the way to December.
That's right.
And it's so brilliant, right? So it's going to start in January. It's going to start when Raw goes to Netflix.
Yep.
Who's not going to be watching that now? Like if they're already, you didn't have enough reasons to watch Raw on Netflix. John Cena's going to make an appearance there. Amazing. I think a strong case can be made for Randy Orton's either his last opponent or his WrestleMania opponent. Maybe both. I don't know.
I think he wins at WrestleMania, because I think, and this may be controversial to say as well, but the way Ric Flair has moved the last couple of years, people love him. I have a great affection for him. He has every so often, I'm going to retire. He's now nearly 80 years old, and he's still out there, hawking weed and doing all these things. And I just don't know if at the end of the day, and this is very petty, if they do this. But I don't know if the powers that be at WWE want Rick to be that name that's always at the top of the mountain.
Well, they keep calling John Cena the greatest of all time.
Correct.
Like they've been announcing him to the ring as the greatest of all time. That's not by accident.
Correct.
You know that things in WWE are never done by accident.
Correct.
Like that. So they're planting that seed so that when he wins 17, whenever that happens to be, we'll go, oh yeah, he is the greatest of all time. He's won the most championships.
And just be prepared for a Ric Flair explosion, because if you notice Ric Flair on social media, he will continue to post when you're the greatest and you're the greatest, and it's like videos from 1985 or 1995. I was there are stories I just simply cannot tell, but I've been witness to and in this vicinity for some really, really weird moments. That, like, why does this bother you 20 years later? Why does this bother you now? Why can't we enjoy what we've done, enjoy our careers, enjoy the fact that there are marijuana companies that will partner with you, that there are the Migos that will put you in a song, and just enjoy where you are? And instead, I feel like he's always trying to remind us of how great he was. And at some point, all of us have to move on and stand back and say, okay, that's what I've done. Now what am I doing?
Okay, stop what you're doing, because this is your chance to win 2 tickets to the Royal Rumble.
Become open to doing other projects. There's 2 reasons for that. A, I listened to Vince, mistake number 1, because he wanted me to keep that credibility that I had when I was at ESPN as a journalist, as a guy who did SportsCenter, instead of heel coach, which was the best version of it. And I started doing heel coach again on social media, and I'm loving it. So that was the first mistake. The second mistake they made. And if you notice now, how many 3-man booths are there on Raw or SmackDown?
Right now there's none.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It's too difficult. And it's nothing against Corey Graves, but he just happened to be the one that I was working with when I came back. And I believe at my core that he didn't want me there. And again, that's okay, because it's his time now. But it doesn't mean that I didn't have something to give, but I was like the outcast. I was trying to get in. And I remember years ago, JR used to teach me that when you do a 3-man booth, it's like a 3-man weave. And you've got to be able to hit guys for a layup or a dunk at the right times while Vince is screaming in your ear. And if everybody's not on the same page, the ball's going to go out of bounds. And that's what I felt like those few months when I came back in 2018 was we fumbled the ball out of bounds because it was a 3-man booth. And if I would have been there with Michael or whoever, and I could have been allowed to go back to heel coach in a 2-man booth, I think it would have been completely different. So that's why I say, never say never. If it was in that role, fine. I would never go back and do a 3-man booth, and I would never go back and be that journalist to keep my credibility, because quite frankly, look at the landscape, Chris, now. You got Joe Tessitore drinking on camera, Pat McAfee getting loaded on camera in Double Down. I started it. I was the one that made that crossover happen in 2008. So now there's no more, oh, well, he's at ESPN, so you can't do wrestling, or he's at wrestling, so he can't do ESPN. The whole thing has changed. So if it was the right role, I would, but I'm enjoying building this world with you, where there's a huge chasm between credible people who've done it, who are in it, and just the fans at home who are marks that think they know about the business, and all they do is insult people.
We always hear stories about Vince yelling in the commentators' ear. It can't be yelling all the time, right? What are you generally hearing when Vince is talking in your ear on commentary?
If you're saying 1 to 10, it's usually about a 4.
Okay.
The only time he would yell is if you didn't say it when he wanted you to say it.
So he's teeing you up for lines.
Right. So say, for example, Cody Rhodes is coming to the ring. He'd be like, Cody Rhodes, big night this Saturday. Okay. Stuff like that. Now, I will say this. There is a clear, you can tell exactly when Vince got pushed out if you listen to Michael Cole. Because imagine getting beaten down verbally for 20 years. And Michael Cole, I don't think, has missed a show in the 25 plus years he's been there. I know when I was there my first 10 years, I missed 1, and that was for my honeymoon. That was it. So they create that world in you, and Vince creates that world. Like, this is your show, you got to be here. Can you imagine Jim Nance or Joe Buck? And they're going, you're going to work 52 weeks a year? Are you kidding me? So he's much happier now, because Triple H is like, I think after 25 years, if you don't know how to call it, that there's nothing we can do for you. But yeah, he would be very calm. I do remember a time where I said something he didn't like about Test, God rest his soul, and I said something to the effect of he was weak, or his you're killing his character. What are you doing? What are you doing? You just killed his character. You killed him. You killed him. Oh my god. And you're still trying to call the match. The match is still going, right? And so that was the problem.
Are the other commentators hearing this, or is it just
no? He's got buttons for each person.
Okay, and then there's the call all for
the all call we call it. Yeah, exactly. So no, they don't all hear it. But and I also say that it has helped me, no matter where I've gone, no matter what I do, that hearing somebody in my ear doesn't bother me. And it's just kind of, I made a joke when I was at ESPN that whoever I work with as far as producer in my ear, it'd be like working with Mr. Rogers as opposed to what we hear with Vince. But yeah.
What's the specific change you've heard in what Michael Cole does now?
He's happy. He's loose. He can be the guy that we all want to be. He's got one of the greatest jobs in sports as an announcer. He gets to call an iconic show, whether it's Raw or whether it's SmackDown, and they're moving him around. And also, he's an ultimate team player. Because when they announced that Joe Tessitore is coming over, I said to myself, there is no way that Tessitore is going to give up his college football gig. He's one of the top guys at ESPN. So he called the Florida State game last week in Ireland. So I knew at some point they would move Michael to SmackDown, and that Joe would do Mondays, and that's exactly what has happened. The thing that I get bitter at, Chris, to be honest with you, is when I came back in 2018, I had 5 golf gigs already booked. And Vince was like, I want you to keep this credibility. Awesome. I got these golf gigs. And they said, no problem. You're good. We'll have somebody else step in, give them an opportunity. And so the first one, when I came back, I could tell they were kind of, why'd you miss last week? Second one, Vince was just pissed. And I'm like, wait a second. I was very upfront about this. And they put Renee in my spot, and God bless her. She did a good job. But of course, everybody who was there, I was now the outsider. So you had all these people, you had all these women wrestlers. Renee's the best. Renee's the best. Renee's the best. And then I got pulled and put on the Sunday Night Countdown show, which I actually enjoyed very much. And I didn't have to travel every week because I could tell the way I was being treated. I was like, they don't want me here. Why? I don't know. But they don't. But yet they're letting Pat McAfee leave for 5 months to go do College Game Day and then come back for the Netflix. I'm like, wait a second. I tried to do this 5 years ago. Now I'm not saying that I'm on Pat McAfee's level, but it's just how the mindset has changed since Vince left.
I love seeing what I like to call the Cole cam, the announcer cam that's on them, because there's the great moments where you're seeing Michael Cole's passion, right? Like 1D, like he's just going wild with it. And there's the other moments where Pat McAfee cracks him, and he's trying so hard to not laugh on commentary, and you're just seeing him like just breaking.
Pat McAfee is a unicorn, and he says stuff without any fear of repercussion. And Michael Cole, the reason you see that reaction from Michael is because if somebody's going to get yelled at for something McAfee says, it's going to be Michael. So he's like, oh, geez, whether it's swearing, whether it's saying something out of bounds, whatever it is, they're not yelling at McAfee. They're like, man, we love McAfee. Yeah. We love all the things he does. He does the football, he does the show, he does ESPN. Man, that's who he is. I mean, last week, for God's sake, he admitted to drinking 30 Guinness beers, and 18 of them were on camera. He took an edible. That was 100 milligrams.
What?
On the plane. Yes. And admitted to it. And everybody laughed. Every video I saw, he's a regular dude. And I was going, when I was at ESPN, I couldn't even turn left out of the parking lot. If I was supposed to go right, I would get yelled at. Man. It's so different now. And also, these networks have realized that they can pay guys less, not McAfee, he makes a lot, but pay guys less and allow them to do other things. So if a guy wants to make $1 million, then instead of paying them $1 million, they can pay them 600,000 and they can go get the 400,000 somewhere else. That was not the case when I was there.
You were in such a unique position, especially that first run, where not only were you doing the backstage interviews, you were then worked into storylines.
Yeah.
And you became a character.
Yep.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Part of the reason was I was big. I'm 6'3.5". I walk around at 250, 260. And I'll never forget that the day that I had done an interview it was a tag team interview. And what we would do to make the wrestlers bigger, because Vince was adamant that the wrestlers had to be viewed as big. So we'd always put them ahead of us, that perception. Yeah. But then in the text, I had my legs completely spread, right? Yeah. So it was a fight scene. So the camera guy snapped out, and I still have my legs out like I'm doing a split. It looked ridiculous. The following week, I'm working out at the gym at the old building. Now they have a new building. And Vince came up to me and says, "Hey, pal, we got an idea. You're just too big to do what you're doing. But we can talk. You're physical. You played athletics. What would you think about training in the ring and becoming a character? A heel, no less." And I was like, well, I think that would be a fun idea if it was the right time. And that was about May of 2003. And then we ended up doing the first thing, SummerSlam of 2003, where I attacked Shane with the chair. And so when you're approached about the first thing you're really going to do physically, Chris, and it's going to be hitting Shane McMahon, the boss's son, that's a nerve-wracking experience. Sure. Because if you clip him in the head or clip him somewhere else and you hurt him, you're probably done, to be honest with you. So it was awesome. And I was nervous all day. It was 100 degrees. It was Phoenix. Who booked SummerSlam in Phoenix? I don't know. But they did that year. And so that's exactly how it happened. And a lot of guys helped me and trained me. I got booked on house shows. They call live events now. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would show up early. We would train in the ring. A lot of guys helped me. And then what was really cool about it is most people don't realize this, but you always want to send the crowd home happy. It's a perception thing. It's an energy thing. And normally the babyface will win the main event. And that always used to piss off the heel who was in the main event. So with me there, and when I watch Dirty Dom, I smile to myself because there's a certain level of, now he does wrestle a lot, but there's a certain number of talent in the back that's pissed off. And why is that? Because they would love to have that heat. Yeah. I mean, when he goes to the microphone, the crowd goes bananas. Right. It's the mustache, it's the long hair, it's everything he does. And he's not ripped, he's not super stacked, all of that. And everybody that comes in, that walks through the door, you want him to have that heat. And that is heat you cannot manufacture. I got that same kind of heat. People hated hearing me talk because I was so good at it. And then so what happened was they made me a ring announcer. And so the heel could go over in the main event, and then I would do something, make a mistake, make fun of somebody, and then the babyface would beat me up to end the show. And so everybody went home happy, including the heel talent that was in the main event. So there was a lot of good things that came out of that.
If you've been watching for any length of time, you know that I love. They're like the best. Viore is an investment in your happiness.
Wow. I really do. Because people don't understand how to take it. People go to their knees and take it.
I mean, I think Rock and Scott Hall are 1, 2. So does that make you number 3?
Whoa. Scott Hall was way over the top.
That's what makes it great.
Yeah, well, but there is a happy medium that you got to have.
You must have
bounce.
hated Austin Theories. He went like 1,000 feet in the air.
Yeah. And if you ask Stone Cold, he would say that I was right up there too. Rock was probably the best. And when I started taking it, I learned from watching, by far, and it's not close, Vince is the worst. Mick Foley is number 2. Right?
Linda McMahon's pretty bad.
That was pretty bad too, yeah. And they never understood all you do is because when you're in the ring, and hopefully a lot of young talent listen to this, they think that you're being watched all the time. You're not. It's the person that's doing whatever it is that they're doing that's being watched. So you can fudge it a little bit. And what you do is you go down on your feet and you launch yourself. All Stone Cold's doing is putting your head right there and going to his butt. Other people who take it off their knees, they go down. Stone Cold's not coming up with you. So naturally, you're both going to fall like that. So if you notice Rock, I learned it from Rock. Then you bounce yourself and then you take the bump. And Stone Cold has nothing to do with it. Nothing. And most people don't realize that.
Rock took it the way he took it to make Stone Cold laugh.
100%.
It's just so funny.
Yeah.
I love the way that Kurt Angle used to take it because it felt very like authentic.
Correct.
Like if you were actually getting stunned, you probably would do what Kurt Angle does.
Which is why I've said Kurt Angle is the greatest in-ring performer there ever is.
So good.
People argue with me. I'm telling you right now, there's been nobody, whether you're training and you come into the business or whether you're an authentic NCAA wrestler like him and Brock and Gabe and all these guys that have done it. Yeah, and that's, to me, it's even harder to make the transition because you've been doing it your whole life one way, looking for points, trying to pin, and now you're coming over and you're trying to be entertaining. And what Kurt Angle was able to do, not only in the ring, but also as his character with the cowboy hats and the singing and all that, he embraced it. And I don't know why more talent doesn't embrace trying something. Don't sit on the sidelines and complain that they're not using you. Walk in, throw 10 things at the wall. If one hits, that could be a Stone Cold Steve Austin moment.
Do you know how many televised matches you had?
Oh, gosh.
A little fun fact here.
Televised?
Yeah, televised matches.
I'm going to say non-pay-per-view.
I think pay-per-view would be included.
Would that be included?
Yeah.
I'm going to say 6.
30.
30?
30.
30.
John Cena, Ric Flair, Jerry Lawler, Batista, Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Mick Foley, Bobby Lashley, and the list goes on.
So anybody out there, all you marks out there that say, I never did, I was in with the best. Yeah. Now, Ric Flair, that one happened in Afghanistan. And I'll never forget, they needed an extra match. And they said, hey, coach, we need you to go 8 minutes with Rick. And Rick was so respectful of everybody. I walked up in the locker room, I said, hey, Rick, they need to add a match, so it's going to be me and you. All right, cool. We'll just call it out there, figure 4. And I stopped, and there was a couple other talent in the room, they were laughing. And I said, Rick, no offense, I'm not Shawn Michaels. We can't just call it out there. I need to know exactly what you were doing. And my figure 4 that I took was so bad, they had to edit around it. You never saw it. And they started teasing me on the plane ride home and called it the figure 2. True story. True story.
What was so bad about it?
Well, I was scared because you have to put your foot above your knee. And you know when you have like a hyperextended knee, how painful it is? In my mind, I was like, I'm going to hyperextend my own knee. So I just couldn't physically make my leg go up there because I was terrified I was going to have a blown ACL. And so my foot was like halfway up my calf instead of all the way up to the knee where then he could hook it and then it looked like the traditional figure 4.
You had a few times where you were supposed to wrestle JR and they were like, oh, instead of JR, it's actually TR. The Rhino. The Rhino comes out. And instead of JR, it's actually just an R. KO. And then Randy comes out. You took a great RKO.
Thank you. It was those were such fun days. They really were. And we talk about that being the best era so far, and that's part of the reason why is because we had really good writers and we had really good creative people, and we also had superstars. And this is I think my biggest thing when I watch now is you have superstars, whether it's WWE or AEW, that sit back and wait to be told what they're going to do. And I would walk in, and I would toss ideas out. What's the worst they're going to say? At least they know I'm invested. At least they know that I'm thinking about it. And then it was kind of cool. You get a phone call on a Saturday or Sunday, and they say, hey, you're going to do this. And a lot of times they will use the live events to practice matches that are going to be on Monday Night Raw or on SmackDown. I was so great, Chris, that I didn't really have to do that.
Is heel coach sitting in front of me right now?
Well, heel coach is back and he feels really good right now.
Wow, you need the backwards hats and sunglasses.
Well, I have him right over there. So, but yeah, and that was always kind of fun. And they like to call me kind of the utility player.
Sure.
And I was very, very proud of that. And I think that's part of the reason that the boys started respecting me, because there's legendary stories about being hazed or whatever the case might be. Once you step foot through the ropes, your world changes, because that's where the danger is. That's where you can get hurt. And that's why the talent is treated so much differently than everybody else, because they're the money and they're the ones putting their bodies on the line, for the product.
I want to go through some of my favorite coach moments.
Okay.
The pyro hits, Kane's pyro hits. And what happens?
Well,
you fall off your chair.
Everybody thought that was supposed to happen. It was. I just didn't know about it. So Vince told me, he goes, hey, I want you to really, he loved when I was JR. He loved making fun of JR. And he goes, hey, I want you to put your feet up on the desk and just lean back and just start talking. And JR, he was so put together, just like Michael Cole is, that he would have things written out for entrances, and he knew exactly when music was going to hit. And if you threw him off a little bit, he hated that. He would grab you, he would grab me like, shut up. And so that one, I was like, fantastic. And I'll be honest, sometimes they wouldn't put things on the rundown so that talent didn't know, or it didn't get leaked to the online community or whatever. That was one of those times. So I just put my feet up. That pyro was so hot and so loud. It's probably my funniest moment I've ever had.
It was so good.
Yeah, but that's true. I didn't know that was coming.
How about this segment with you and Viscera?
Oh, God. There have been certain times in my career where I've thought to myself, whatever I want to do moving forward, this will stop that. That was one of them. And Big Vis, what a sweet guy. And what's funny is you asked me about him and Kane, and those were the two guys that threw me off in the famous SummerSlam commercial. Threw me into the pool.
Yeah.
And those were the two guys that threw me into the pool during the SummerSlam commercial, about 5 miles from where we're sitting right now at a $9 million mansion in Hollywood. But having this kind of eviscerate me, I guess, in that way, and if people want to know, they can look it up. I'm sure that you'll put it into the show.
The clip's playing right now.
I can see this playing right now. And I've said this many times. There are certain things I should have said no to. That is definitely right at the top of the list.
He violated you.
He did.
It was only for like 2 seconds.
It was 2 seconds too long. 2 seconds too long.
I'm sorry for bringing that up.
Okay.
How about when Stone Cold is chasing Teddy Long on the four-wheeler? Do you remember the line that you said?
No.
He's chasing a black man.
Oh my God.
It's hilarious.
Oh my God. I'm sure. There are so many things. People and fans will see. That account that says on this day 20.
Yes.
Those are, I don't know if it's a lot of shots ahead, because I've had staples in my head from bad chair shots or whatever, and I really think I've forgotten some of these things, and that one I have forgotten. But there are probably 10 to 20 things that if we did today or said today, we would just be crucified for. And I don't know if that's one of them, probably not one of them. But it's just I just think like that. That's why I think, oh my gosh. And so I love working with Stone Cold and Teddy. Teddy had such great comedic timing. Stone Cold kind of went from being this badass when I first got there. And you know who the person was that kind of got Stone Cold to be the funny person?
Wasn't it the stuff he did with Kurt Angle?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that's what kind of made Stone Cold realize that I can't be this badass forever. And that's why I said I think he's one of the best reality show hosts that's ever been on TV. I feel like he's incredibly good with the interviews. I think that he found a talent that he wouldn't have known that he would have. And a lot of these skits that he did after the Kurt Angle stuff is an example of that.
So was our interview last year kind of your gateway drug to allow you to kind of get back into like, all right, I like wrestling a little bit now?
It was something. It was a reflection for me, because I was very honest, and I've had people, probably 100 or more, bring up that interview, and they say, "Coach, but you said," and when I started behind the turnbuckle, "What are you doing?" And they accuse me of starting the show to try to get back into the WWE. And I'm like, before you accuse me, watch the show, because I'm as critical of the WWE as I am of AEW. It's an opinion-based show, and the reason we do it, but we also are positive, just like you are, because this is a business that people need to understand, and the more they understand, the more they can enjoy it, instead of just watching it always to look for something bad, because that's what most fans do, and they're so negative. And social media is a cesspool, and especially in wrestling.
Yes.
But what I've also found, and part of the reason you went almost exclusively to wrestling, is they're also the most rabid fan base. And I said to myself, if I'm going to embrace remote and away from my kids, and I don't want to take a job in another state because my kids are in high school, I've got to figure out something. And why not lead into something that I did for damn near 15 years? Why am I ignoring that part of my life? It was stupid. Over money. And so I can admit when I was wrong, and I can admit when do I enjoy every minute? No, I don't enjoy every minute, because I think some of it's really, really bad. But I enjoy being somebody who understands the business, and I'm really, really smart about the business. And I've been in there. You listed all the guys. I've been in there with the all-time greats. Yeah. And I don't want to ignore that anymore.
I don't think it's that you were wrong that you weren't going to do stuff in wrestling again. It's just that was a chapter of your life. Yep. And at that point, you were like, I really don't like how that ended. You felt like you got screwed over by Vince McMahon.
I did. I felt like I got screwed over. And then also the 5 or 6 months that they put me on Raw and SmackDown, I didn't like how I was treated. And they can say what they want, but that's the truth. I would actively every week ask Michael Cole, can you talk to Corey about us working together? I have nothing against Corey Graves. I've known Michael Cole since 1999. But if they don't want to work with you, there's nothing you can do. And Corey never wanted to talk to me. Like before, I never had one conversation with Corey Graves, and I tried. And that's okay, because that's kind of how the business is. When you get, I call it boxing out your pension when you're at ESPN. If you don't want somebody to step in and take your spot, and I was never going to take his spot. He's amazing doing Raw or SmackDown. It was about, that's what Vince wanted. Yeah. I didn't come in and go, I'm stepping into that spot. And so it was really frustrating, because I felt like I could have really helped. But also now I'm much more vocal about knowing, and this is the other thing, is that with the whole ESPN situation, you don't know if, because I work for the PGA Tour now too. So there's not too many golf announcers that wear backward hats and sunglasses. Yeah. But I do it. Yeah. Because now they just had a tournament with YouTubers. PGA Tour is embracing YouTube. Everything has changed. And so now I realize that back in 2018, maybe that wasn't the time. But in 2024, there is no more, oh, he's a wrestling guy or he's a YouTube guy. We're all in the same bucket. And however you can get views and however you can get people to watch and listen and be funny, entertaining, and also credible, that's what we're trying to do. So that's kind of the lane I'm in.
What do you think's been the biggest change in wrestling over the last few years? Because it's definitely on an upswing right now.
Well, it's on an upswing financially. And I feel like the WWE in particular hides behind that. What do I mean by that? The other night, the first segment, really, really hot with Judgment Day, led to an 8-man tag. It was either a 3 or 4 segment match. When I started, you had a 2-hour show. You'd see the start at the beginning, and then you see them in the main event. Yeah. During that 3-hour stretch of Raw, you had at least 4 matches that were multiple segments. If you have enough talent on the roster and you're deep enough, you don't need to do that. But they feel like they do. And if you have shorter matches, say 2 segments instead of 3 or 4, now you're requiring them to tell a better story. You're requiring the writers to write better stuff for them. And then you're requiring the audience to say, okay, I need to be here for this. I can't go to the bathroom because this is going to last 45 minutes. That's a pay-per-view linked match. That's not a Monday Night Raw linked match. And so they hide behind this $5 billion Netflix deal. Fantastic. But when you dig a little bit deeper, when I was there, my buddy Tommy C, my partner, he ran the international. You know how Vince took the company from, let's say, 80 million to 800 million to $1 billion company. Do you know how he did that?
It was going worldwide, wasn't that it?
Worldwide, but how did he go worldwide? Because we would tape Raw on Mondays, SmackDown on Tuesdays. Internationally, Raw would air Fridays, SmackDown on Saturdays. Why? Because he did licensing deals in every single country you could possibly imagine. So he would go to 160 countries. So imagine sitting right here, and Insight is licensed, and you get 160 checks that show up for this interview. That's what we did.
But imagine living in another part of the world and watching Raw 5 days later.
Correct.
People would never do that now.
Never do that now. But the reason we had to do that is because there's certain rules.
Sure.
And they put things in and out. So my point about the Netflix deal is when Netflix really grew a couple years ago, what did they do? They went worldwide. So now all of those licensing deals that existed for Germany, for England, for all those, gone. Which also leads to people losing their jobs.
I know that wrestling is on an upswing right now when I have people say, I just started watching at WrestleMania 39. I just started watching WrestleMania 40, or I haven't watched in 10 years and I'm back.
Correct.
I hadn't met new wrestling fans maybe ever. I haven't met new wrestling fans in years. The fact that there's new fans or lapsed fans coming back, that tells me something's happening.
There's no question. And I don't want you to misunderstand that I don't think it's on an uptick when I say that they hide behind the financials. But when they bring The Rock back, and this is one thing I worry about, is they bring The Rock back, who I adore, who taught me a lot. And they very openly say, we give him $30 million. And his agency is over here. TKO is over here. And a lot of the friends that I work with in the WWE have been strategically exiting the door. So a guy named Jason Robinson, you may not know who he is.
No.
Every single one for 28 years. That when you see, oh man, this set's amazing, right? For No Mercy, Bad Blood, WrestleMania. Who do you think makes those? Jason Robinson. He's got his partner, wife, I'm not sure if they're married or not. She works in the truck, amazing. Her job is now being replaced back into Stanford. You had Kevin Dunn, who hired me on the spot. He is no longer there. Who is? Lee Fitting. Lee Fitting was the head of college football at ESPN and the head of College Game Day. Brilliant mind. Left ESPN a few months later. Who is now in Kevin Dunn's spot? How does that happen? Kirk Herbstreit's agent for a lot of years was who? Nick Khan. So now Nick Khan, who's the president of WWE, brings in Lee Fitting. So all of these moves, and they can do what they want. I'm not there. I'm just pointing out the facts. Is that now a lot of the strength of WWE is on the TKO side. You just saw that they're moving the training center to where?
Vegas, right?
What else is in Vegas?
The UFC Apex.
There you go, the UFC, and that's where they are. Dana White refused to even answer a question last night about the WWE moving, where they put it all together. So in my opinion, what I see is TKO trying to take over everything when it comes to the UFC and to the WWE. No more pyro. The production there's been a lot of changes I do like. I like having the video on the side when you're walking in. I like having so I do like a lot of the changes.
NordVPN has been a lifesaver for me. And have you seen how much coffee per month? So if you want to check out, just click that link down below in the description. They're on the boards, they're on the ring. If you watch baseball, they're on the mound, they're behind the plate, they're on the fence. If you watch UFC, there's like 15 of them inside the octagon. When they put a few logos in the ring, people got really upset about that.
Well, they need to get over it because I work for the PFL, I do all the betting for the PFL, who now owns Bellator. And part of the reason it's so smart, people need to understand this, is that companies are tired of writing a check to Fox. And it happened to be in a studio show at 5 o'clock, it runs and it's gone. So what you're describing is what they call organic marketing. And you put it in, so now your people are seeing it as they're watching the live event. And live event, whether it's wrestling, football, basketball, whatever, that's where all the money is. You don't watch Raw after it's over. You don't watch a football game after it's over. You watch it live in the moment. So all these companies are spending millions and millions of dollars. They want to make sure that they're getting that return on their investment and not be stuck at 2 a.m. on the late sports center, at ESPN. So they've created ways of not only it living live, but then it can live organically if you put that match on the YouTube channel or on wherever else it lives. Netflix, you're gonna be able to see DraftKings, whatever it is, forever instead of a one-off commercial. That's how we do it, you do it, and it's the way you sell things nowadays. It can't just go into oblivion. It can't. It's like, I get that the ring didn't have ads for so long and wrestling fans hate change, right? Like it boils down to wrestling fans don't like change. So when the Prime logo went in there and then this last PLE, there were other logos in the ring. It's just a part of the business where it happens in every other sport. Why would wrestling be any different? And I would ask wrestling fans, would you rather have Prime in the ring or would you rather have a fly up during the commercial and say, Monday Night Raw is brought to you by Prime Energy?
That's really good.
Thank you very much.
Snickers, really
right. And that's the way we used to do it. You'd have the 3, and then the next hour you have 3 more. Now you can sell those and you don't have to shove it down somebody's throat, right? And it's very subliminal, it's very subtle, instead of doing the fly-ins for the show. So I don't know why fans don't like it. It's a really smart way of doing it.
Because it's change.
I know it is. Oh, and I think that's what I've learned. I don't read my mentions anymore because wrestling fans, all they want to do is complain. Even if they enjoy something, Chris, they will still figure out a way to turn it negative, which I don't understand, because when I watch something and I'm sitting at home, I just want to enjoy myself.
I think the biggest thing I remind wrestling fans is have a little bit of patience. Like if they see something on a Monday or a Friday that they don't like, they're so quick to grab their phone and talk about how much they don't like it. It's like, give it a week or 2 or 3. See how this storyline plays out by the time we get to the PLE. Then ask yourself if you don't like it or not. But just because in the moment it doesn't make sense, give it a little bit of time. That would be like watching a movie and halfway through going, oh, this sucks. I hate this. And then by the end of the movie going, oh, wow. It really tied itself together there. I get it.
I think what you're pointing out is exactly what we try to do at our shows, because we have discussion shows, we have debate shows, we have interview shows, we do everything. And fans need to understand that if they can have the patience, what is at the core of what pro wrestling is? We've lost that. It's storytelling. I sat down with Vince Russo, and whether you like Vince Russo or you don't, you cannot dispute the fact that some of the best storytelling in the history of pro wrestling, he wrote. He had to, and this blew my mind. When Austin did that famous Austin 316, said, I just whipped your ass. Vince was so caught up in the moment of what was going on producing the show, he didn't even really realize what Austin had done. Russo had to go and tell him, hey, we're going to run with this. Run with what? He didn't even know what he was talking about. And Vince had Vince McMahon's ear and had to convince him that reality-based storylines, and when he said this on my show, I said, you're exactly right. Reality-based storylines have to be reality-based.
To be fair, there were also a lot of really bad storylines that Vince Russo was responsible for. So I think we have to take the good with the bad.
100%.
Like Jimmy Bagwell and many pole matches.
But when and this is why I've always said, having 52 weeks of TV is not a good thing. Because imagine trying to write 52 episodes of Friends. You're going to have probably 20 or 30 that are pretty bad. You have 22. They got to a point, whether it was during Vince's time or afterwards, and when I was there, you would see writers literally running in, Chris, at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon with all these papers they had just printed out because Vince had ripped the show up on Saturday after an 8-hour conference call. Start it over. And you'd be like, oh my God. They were just trying to get to production. They were trying to get to the start of the show. There were times, I kid you not, where I would have somebody hand me Monday Night Raw that I was calling about 5 minutes before the show. So in defense of them, it's just, if Vince wants something ripped up, there's nothing you can do, and you have to work with that. And that's no way to do big time TV production. But when you have 52 weeks a year, there's no time to breathe. There's no week to take off. There's no time for us to forget. We don't see Roman Reigns for 4 months. And this is part of the thing that I'm talking about, is that why in the world would you announce that your biggest star is coming back and then make it a run-in? Think about that for a second. They announced that Roman Reigns was coming back at SummerSlam. The entire match, what was the crowd doing? Looking at the entrance, waiting for Roman Reigns to come out. And he came out, didn't say a word, and did a run-in. If you're going to do a run-in and it's a surprise, why would you announce that you're going to do that? They 100%. It was a press release. They put out a press release that Roman Reigns would make his return to SummerSlam. And he did, and it was a run-in. If you're going to do that, then just bring him out. But he came out, he hit Solo, and that was the thing. And so to me, that was a direct result of, we've got to do something, and we got to make sure that people watch. And that's now that TKO is involved. Because TKO, let's be honest, they made a huge misappropriation of funds. I don't care what anybody says. When you pay $4 billion for a company that somebody spent $2 million on in 2001, $4 billion. They could have got that company for $2.
You're talking about the UFC.
Correct, 2.5. So they bought the WWE because WWE is a cash cow. So they want to make sure they get every last dime out of all the production. That's why they did it. So to make sure that people tune in, they can then roll that over. And again, they can do what they want to do. But when you're trying to make up for a $4 billion buy, you're going to do everything you can to get every last dollar.
UFC's probably doing okay right now. That TKO stock just keeps climbing. It's very high right now.
Because of WWE.
You played a small role in the absolute worst storyline in the history of wrestling.
I can't wait to hear this one.
Katie Vick.
Oh, God. What was my small role in it?
You were the one interviewing Triple H when he was revealing the special footage that he had of Kane. Do you remember that? And do you remember what that footage was?
I believe it was a casket. And I'm telling you right now, Chris, that and anybody will tell you this, if it was Michael Cole sitting here, that if Vince was still involved, people are still terrified of him. And I'm not proud of the fact that I never told him no. This is one of the things that I told you on and off camera. There's a lot of things I should have said no to. That was one of the most repulsive, disgusting storylines of all time. During that time, Vince would go down a road and everything he was doing was hitting, whether it was the milk truck, whether it was the cement truck with the, the Corvette, all of that stuff. So let's just keep going. Let's do shot TV. I can tell you this, that when that, because they shot that off-site. Yeah. So nobody had seen it until it ran on the show. And backstage, you could hear people just groaning because it was so incredibly bad. And if you put a lie detector on Triple H today, he would probably tell you the same thing.
What's crazy about that storyline is this isn't two forgettable mid-carders. This is two of the all-time greats. Triple H and Kane involved in the worst storyline ever.
I think Kane, who I have so much respect for, so smart, and is one of the few guys that has left and really done good things outside of the wrestling business. I think he would tell you, and there are a lot of things, let's be honest, and thank God that happened so long ago that now if it was showed, be like, hey, listen, that was 20 some odd years ago. Because if that happened now, you probably couldn't get a job for a while. You probably, you'd be like, really? I don't want any part of that. It was really bad. There's really not much else I can say. Honestly, I didn't even remember I did that. I honestly didn't. I've
heard a story that there was an actual funeral going on next door to where Triple H was filming this.
From what I understand, yes. And they had to shoot it really, really fast to get in and get out because it was at a funeral home. It was a real funeral home, yes.
Wow. Could you imagine being next door, mourning your loved one who just passed away?
The other thing they used to do.
There's a man having sex with a mannequin next door.
Oh God. The thing they used to do, whether it was that or whether it was the grocery store fight with Stone Cold and Booker T, or whether it was remodeling the Timmy White's bar in Providence 8 times, is they would just throw money at it. And they'd be like, hey, we'll pay you $10,000 to let us shoot here. Man. And that's how Vince would do it. They would just throw money at it. And I remember Timmy White, every time he would want to remodel his bar, they would have the APA have a fight in there. They would break everything, and then Vince would buy a whole new bar for him. That's a true story. That's what happened. If you look at his bar, like every 2 years, it was remodeled brand new after an APA fight.
I didn't know that was the same bar.
Same bar.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love Timmy White, by the way. Love Timmy White.
You probably saw some stuff on some of those plane rides. Do you have any amazing stories from any of the flights that you've been on with that you can tell publicly?
Well, I at some point we're going to do, and I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but after the Flight from Hell, after that came out, I kind of made a public statement that I didn't exactly agree with some of the stuff. And some of the producers at the time DM'd me on social media and threatened to sue me. And I said, you can't really sue somebody over the truth. Well, how would you know if it's not the truth? Well, I was in the middle of all of it. So I actually was an eyewitness, and they didn't interview anybody. That was back where all the stuff happened. So at some point we're going to do a small little pay-per-view where we tell all the stories. But I will say this, on that flight, Michael Hayes had not cut his hair for many, many, many years. And people don't realize part of the reason all of that happened was we would fly over there on a thing called Sports Jet. It was a lot of teams would share it back then. It was about 60 first class seats. You had 4 card tables and then probably 8 to 10 rows of coach where the sports writers would sit, things of that nature. So all of us who were partying were in the back. Well, part of the reason it got so crazy is that the 2 tours, SmackDown and Raw, one tour was already waiting on the plane. We were doing a show in London, and we got onto the bus. It was an hour and a half because anybody's ever been to London, there's no highways, so we had to get to the plane. So now that's an hour and a half of drinking. They're already on the plane, so now that's an hour and a half. The pilot said there's too many people. They were told there were 63. I remember these numbers like it was yesterday. Told there were 63 people. We had 74. It was too heavy. I kid you not, Chris. They walked down the aisle with a piece of paper, and you had to tell them your weight. They told, I kid you not, remember you're not supposed to ask a woman how much she weighs, and they actually told the women, do not lie about your weight. True story. And so they wrote it down, did the numbers, and I went up to them, I said, if this is seriously how you're doing it, I'll get off. And I'll get a flight back to the States on a public airline, because if we're gonna go down in the ocean because we have 5 or 1,000 pounds too much, I'll never forgive myself. They go, no, we're good. So that whole process took another hour and a half or 2. So now we're talking almost 4 hours of pro wrestlers drinking, partying, whatever they were doing.
Isn't that where they ran out of booze by that point?
They did run out of alcohol at one point. Me, Jimmy Corderas, and 2 other referees played cards all night so we keep each other awake, because if you fell asleep, it was not good. Michael Hayes did fall asleep. And I'll never forget that X-Pac cut his hair off. And
was he dared to do it? Or was he just...
It was 5 o'clock in the morning. We're now 8 hours in. Nobody had to dare anybody to do anything. But we landed in Hartford, and Hartford was not prepared for us. There was one lady doing customs. So we had 74 people in one line going through customs in Hartford. It was early Sunday morning, and then we had the day off before Raw. And I'll never forget Michael Hayes. All of a sudden, he feels that his hair is gone. And he just starts going, who come out here? Who come out here? Somebody come out here. I'm gonna whip your ass. And we were all too tired to even really laugh, but it was hysterical. And so then at some point, Gerald Briscoe had enough. And he goes, Michael, I cut your hair. Which he didn't have anything to do with it. He just wanted to shut him up. And Gerald Briscoe is a classic tough guy, a classic, real wrestler from Oklahoma State. And I love Michael Hayes. He was my partner for a long time. But when you're dealing with somebody, if they can whip your ass. Well, Michael knew that if anything happened, he was not going to win that fight. So he literally was like, what are you going to do, Michael? Instant. Shut down. Everybody got right back in line, and we continued on through customs. But it was so funny because I don't think to this day that he's cut his hair since. that particular fight.
Wasn't X-Pac like running around the plane with the ponytail?
He may have. He may have. It's a little foggy, Chris. It's still a little foggy.
I mean, I can hear say, you know.
There were a lot of things that happened on that flight. And if you read the online, there's a lot of different online stories about it. I would say probably 40% is true.
Oh, boy.
And the other 60 is not. And the other 60 is better than what they wrote.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I always love having you on the show.
I love it.
You tell the best stories. Congrats on everything you're doing. Congrats on all your success. Everyone can go check out Behind the Turnbuckle. Subscribe. It's linked down below.
Thank you.
I will ask you the same question I asked you at the end of our last episode. Perhaps your answers have changed. But gratitude's so important to me. So, Coach, what are 3 things that you're grateful for?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to do things I really enjoy, the opportunity to help people, the opportunity to be able to, in a world where I want to be a great dad and I want to be present, to, in a small way, use wrestling to be able to stay in the place that I'm in the country, the part of the country that I live in. And I just hope that moving forward, that people can just chill out just a little bit. And we live in the world of entertainment. And entertainment, whether it's movies, sports, wrestling, whatever it is, it should be just that, just to be enjoyed. So just chill a little bit. Don't be so negative. Use your word patience. And for those of us who do this professionally, respect us just a little bit, because we've been there. And when you put 30, 40, 50 years into the business, as opposed to not, maybe respect that a little bit.
Man, heel coach showed up today. Man,
I've enjoyed it. You're the man.
Good to see you.
Congratulations to you.
Hey, thank you.